You're listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast series that syndicates for the A-List Online. My name is Andrew Mackay-Smith. Thank you for joining me. The interview subject I've got coming up for you, he's from a town, well I guess it's a city called Newcastle, but he lives in a town or a city called Newcastle. That's the best way to put it. We'll talk about that through the conversation, but his name is Keelan Butterick, and I guess he is Silent Eyes. Keelan, via his alias Silent Eyes, has a self-titled EP. I believe it's his debut release. It'll hit stores, well, Apple Store and Spotify and all the rest of it, and do hit him up on socials to pick up some physical copy. That way he gets more of the income from the music, this great music that he's crafted. It's out there on November 6th. So here he is, Keelan Butterick, who is Silent Eyes. Keelan, how's things, mate?
Yeah, good, thanks. How are you?
I'm great. It sounds crystal clear from your end. So that's
Yeah,
that's a good
I'm
start.
pretty surprised.
Yeah, Skype's always better for that, even if we just do voice. From the podcast perspective, I've had a lot of interviews that have been conducted where I call from Skype to a mobile, and they sound like the person is in some sort of underground mine.
Oh yeah. Man, it's not pleasant.
No, I can't clean it up. That's the problem, is I can't do anything to it. If the source audio is rat shit, there's nothing I can do about it. But yours is crystal clear. So, mate,
Amazing.
We're on track for a good episode. There you go.
That's always a good start.
Let's kick things off because you are releasing your debut self-EP on November 6th. Now, Lee, of course, in preparation for the interview, has sent me a copy.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had a couple of listens to it, and I could be off the mark here, but tell me otherwise. I think it's a very solid roots rock adventure, and I think it's beautifully written, and I can tell that you spend a lot of time getting things in order to make sure it sounds cohesive, and that's the key word there, cohesive.
Thanks.
So how do you feel about the 5 cuts now that it's in the can? You can't do any more to it, and all that's left is for people to listen to it.
It's, I guess it's a relief in some ways. Because, to just decide something is finished is always a very, for me, a difficult thing. And so to get to that point where I just, you have to decide at some point. Something has to, it's good enough. And that decision was very freeing. I did take a lot of time to, I not necessarily changing the structure of the songs or anything, but just experimenting with the sounds. And I guess, it took a lot of balancing, and, my good mate, Alex Wilson, was really, really helpful through that process, as was my other friend, Seb Key, who's my other bandmate as well. And yeah, just to have it at a place where it's done, is just, it's really, really nice. And thank you for saying it's cohesive. Like, that's really, I'm glad you found it that way. I wanted it to be, they're all slightly different in their own ways, but I wanted there to be, I guess, because I'm still exploring my sound, and, I don't want to limit myself in going just, down one particular avenue. I wanted to kind of give myself a broad platform to start off. But also, like, it's each one of those songs taps into something that I really love, in being, so I appreciate that.
Well, given it's your debut EP too, were these songs that you'd written basically throughout your entire life up to this point, or are these recently written?
Yeah, so these were songs that, there's a couple on there that are older than the others. And since I've recorded the EP, I guess you're always kind of a writing, so to speak. But they were some earlier songs that I chose to yeah, I chose to hang on to, and I thought, yep, that would be a good way to start. And there were different aspects of the songs that I liked, and that's probably, I think that helped in choosing, those ones to be particular. Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. Look, it is, from a listener's perspective, okay, it is hard to single out a specific cut, but I must say I do enjoy Ocean Blues because it's got
Ah, awesome.
that massive big rock ending. It's a Pearl Jam song, really. In terms of its execution, it totally reminds me of is it Oceans? I might even be. I mean, I know that's what your song is called, is Ocean, but it sort of reminds me of that cut from the album 10. So, look, the point being, though, if you had to showcase a single song and you're only given a single song to show to an industry executive such as Dennis Handlin, which one would you choose?
That's a tough call. I think, I guess I really love Ocean Blues. I think I'm really proud of the music in that song. And yeah, I love the build and it's got that really big ending. And, I guess I went with a different song for the single because it was probably, a bit shorter and maybe a bit more hooky or whatever. But yeah, I think Ocean Blues, I'd have to have something that conveys energy or power, I guess. Plus, it feels good to sing, I guess, I love singing that, being able to belt out behind something is always satisfying, and that song gives me a bit of variation in what I do vocally. So plus I love the little guitar leads and into playing things there. So I'd probably go that one, actually, now that you bring it up.
That's a good cut, man. It's a great cut.
Thank you so much.
I mean, I had it on the other night when I was cooking dinner, and I've gone back to that one repeatedly. So that's the one I'd suggest.
Cool.
But I mean, you've always got your own connection to songs and the way that they sort of turn out, and also too. And this is a question for you: have you managed to perform any of these tunes live?
Yeah, well, that's a really interesting question because I've yet to have the pleasure of hearing what they all sound like as a band in a live room. That's something that's on my bucket list. But the way I've been performing them, and it's a hard thing for me because I used to perform them solo acoustically. When I was living in Sydney, I used to just, do a lot of acoustic nights and things, but it was always, I didn't feel satisfied in that I knew how I wanted them to sound, and I just, without being able to convey that extra, the layers and the harmonies and, just those, it just felt like I couldn't convey that well, a lot of the essence of the songs wasn't being conveyed, and I kind of just stopped performing because I thought, well, to anyone else, it's just like, yeah, okay, he's just, it's just another dude with an acoustic guitar sort of thing. So that, for me, really pushed me into wanting to get them recorded, and that's another really satisfying thing about releasing it now is that if I do, it opens up that opportunity to go back into that acoustic mindset, just to be like, okay, well, you can check out the bigger picture and how everything is structured, and and you can see how they were born, the songs, you know what I mean? But
yeah.
I've also been experimenting with looping, just to add some extra layers and textures, and not that I basically have just been doing that with I've got a 3, the Boss 500 pedals. They've got 3 separate individual looping things, and that just gives me a bit of freedom to add some, add a guitar lead or add some vocal lines. And whilst I don't want to, the songs weren't written on a loop pedal, but I've been just experimenting with ways to make them a little bit more interesting live, to convey the things that I love to do with harmonies. And so that's been a bit of fun. And again, just before, like, that would have been someone's first interpretation of the songs, whereas now they've got a point of reference to the work that I'm referencing. And but to be able to get a band together with just that is that's my number one on my bucket list.
I get you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Did you record everything yourself, from the drums to the bass to the guitar?
Look, I've recorded, except for drums and strings. I had this incredible string quartet that happened to just, my other bandmate, Ev's brother, his brother plays cello, his wife played viola, and Alex had written some string parts for cello and viola, coincidentally. And then it just happened that they were playing at a vineyard in Orange and were bringing along 2 extra violin players. So I got out to my mate Seb and I said, "Look, mate, can you please?" Because I don't know how to read music, so I didn't know how to notate anything. I was like, "We need to write some parts to capitalize on this, because this could be amazing." And so we were able to give them their sheet music, and they smashed it out in 2 hours, and that was awesome. And then the drums, I track bass in the studio with Alex O'Toole, who's an incredible drummer and plays in predominantly a band called Meniscus, which is a post-rock instrumental band.
I think I've heard of them, yeah.
Oh, man, just freaking awesome, so good live and so much fun. And he's just, he's the kind of drummer that you could only wish that you could be. So to get him on drums was fantastic, because we literally went through the songs, one rehearsal session, and then we came into the studio. And I guess being on bass as well, it was, I hadn't tracked anything live before. I'm used to just doing individual solo takes. So we were playing together, and I had Alex in the studio recording. Just kind of going by Alex, we were like, yeah, cool, that was great. And like, that was a really short recording period too, but I just remember feeling a little bit like, with everything that I previously recorded, I was incredibly like, no, I need to retake that. Because I was focused on playing bass, I kind of walked out going, well, I don't really, I don't really remember all of those takes that we settled on. So, but I just felt completely confident knowing his ability that we'd got something good. So, so apart from that, and Alex played a couple of piano parts on some different songs, and I wrote a piano part for the track For You, and but everything else, guitars, vocals, bass, I did myself. So yeah.
Good on you. Yeah,
Thanks.
It sounds great. It sounds extreme. Like I said earlier, it sounds very cohesive, and that's why I thought it might have been you that recorded everything, because there's that link between all of the instrumentation that generally only happens when someone knows how to play everything and link them all together per their vision. That's the key word, their vision, with you, I think. And but what inspires you? What gets the blood flowing? Because obviously you're inspired as a kid to get into music. So when did it start?
Oh, wow. I guess I was really lucky as a kid growing up. My grandfather sang in a men's choir, and just the most incredible experiences I had was witnessing him perform. And there's really nothing like the sound of a men's choir. That just, it was incredible. But they went and toured Wales, and it was a Roland Gregory men's Orpheus choir was their name. And I think it's still going in Orange. But that as a kid, just like goosebumps. I was like, wow. And then I guess everything for me kind of it always comes back to being able to sing. And I grew up in Walker, which is a small country
Yeah,
town.
New South Wales. Yeah,
Yeah,
country New
yeah,
South
in
Wales.
between.
Yeah,
That's the one. So
is
it's
that
like
cotton
1,500.
farming out there, or what is it?
In between Tamworth and Armidale, it's predominantly fine wool
Okay.
growing country. So yeah, but 1,500 people in the Shire, and growing up, there wasn't really any exposure to music, apart from singing with my mum on the radio or something like that. So never really witnessing anyone play live, but I just always loved that, loved singing. And then I guess it was probably later on, um, to be honest, I found music through my stepbrother. He just gave me a bunch of CDs, and then yeah, I kind of went down this rabbit hole of discovering all these bands and like, Audio Slave and Metallica and Nirvana and like all kind of like heavier. And then I kind of learned about Dave Grohl, and his first album that he did for the Foo Fighters. And I guess the thing that really stuck with me was the fact that, he couldn't read music. He was, able to, write songs and learnt everything and played them himself. And I kind of just really latched onto that because I was always intimidated, or just felt like I couldn't, because I didn't know how to, well, I just didn't want to read music as well. Like I struggled to be able to, to focus, and my ear has been my strength that I've lent on. And
Sure.
so,
Yep.
yeah, just having to see like, or to hear someone who's put out a record and just listening to that record and hearing everything on it is just him. And I was like, I just wanted to do that, to be able to, and I guess it just from there, like I just wanted to be able to, like I was learning drums. I'd never owned a drum kit. And I'd read that he used to practice by playing on pillows. So that's what I was like, well, if it's good enough for him, I'll just do that. And so like I'd beat the crap out of my thighs with sticks and, and yeah, it was just a process of really just, I was so infatuated with not only, I guess, just guitar but it was just, yeah, I had this insatiable appetite for new music and just wanting to progress and yeah, just it was that's where that's where my hunger came from, was to be able to put something together that I could kind of visualize, and to be able to get everything except for, I could have done drums on this record, but I was like, no way is it going to be like,
Yeah,
I
I
just was
understand.
like,
Yeah.
it's not going to be as good as what Alex O'Toole can do, and it's going to be very it would have paled in comparison to what he did. So I was very happy to let him do what he does.
Yeah, to the untrained ear, maybe nobody would have picked the difference. But for you and your satisfaction levels, and also the musicians out there that can tune into things and really hear the groove that your drummers created,
Yeah.
absolutely, you made the
Oh,
right decision.
oh,
And
yeah, absolutely.
you know, did you? So how did you layer the tracks? Did you start with an acoustic guitar as a guide for the drummer, and then
Yeah.
just sort of layer it up from there?
Yep, that's right. I did the acoustics just at home in Walker, and then vocals as well. I did at home there, and I guess that was enough. I think there might have even been a bass guide track. I don't know. Actually, I think I scrapped that. Yeah, and that was enough for him to get a vibe of the songs. Yeah, and then once we had those, I guess I took that away and basically just tweaked from that point.
Well, that makes sense. I mean, as I say, you pick the best musicians available to you, and if that's you or if that's somebody else, you just do what you need to do. But I'll switch gears for a second. I'll talk about the
Mm.
EP cover
Yeah,
because
sure.
being from Walker, it reminds me of the seed head, and not this is specific to Walker, but it's an agricultural reference. The
Ah,
seed head of a dandelion. That's what it reminds me of. So is
yeah.
that what it is?
No, but I like that. I'd never really thought about that. That's really cool. Yeah, which probably lent, why you thought it was a cotton growing area. But
A little, yeah.
yeah, no, I actually, so I had the name and just asking Alex with, when it comes to artists and things like that,
Hmm.
if he could recommend anyone, and he put me in touch with um, James Stewart, who's based in New York, and he's done a few of their album artworks, but he just, I guess from the name, like I didn't really have. I knew that, you know, visually, rather than I'd been down the path with my other band, like trying to convey what you think you want, and I guess I just was really happy to let his inspiration kind of take a take it running for wherever he wanted, and so he came up with these desires basically based around an eye, and from there he tweaked, and he gave me all these references, and some of them were like where they he'd get like stencils and do all this incredible, some were like way more digital, like depending, and like I guess because of the music and the fact that I'd recorded everything, like the only thing that's electronic or produced or whatever is like the electric guitars and an ebo. I
Yep.
didn't have any other production, so I wanted it to be a natural instrumental kind of bass, and for that reason I was hoping that we could, rather than go down a digital path, that we could do something like that he could make. And he came back with the work you see, and what he'd done is he'd used builders string chalk. You know how they
Yeah, sure.
tap one in with a nail and then they flick it up and it snaps back down on the ground and leaves a line. And
Yep.
he created that piece with this chalked string, and then had ground up chalk and thrown it. And like, I was just like, it was just, yeah, I loved it so much. And so, yeah, that's basically what it is. It was his interpretation of the name Silent Eyes, and based around an eye. But yeah, I just thought
Nice.
it was
Yep.
he was super clever to come up with that. Like, yeah, I was really really stoked.
Have you got some merch ideas for it? Because I'd hate to see it. You know what I'm saying. At this point in time, you can't get out there and perform that
Yeah, yeah,
much. You know. So have
yeah,
you got some merch
absolutely.
ideas to put it on some beer coasters and all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, like I'd love to get it on a shirt. I think that'd be so cool.
Awesome.
Yeah, it'd be really cool to see that. And just yeah, I wanted to show people, because I just want to promote him as well, because he's such an incredible artist. So yeah, I'd be stoked to
Nice.
wear that around.
Nice. Yeah. So are you based in Sydney these days, or whereabouts are you?
I'm actually based in Newcastle at the moment. I've been here since January last year, and I yeah I moved I moved out from Sydney 2017.
Hmm.
It took 18 months in Walker, and then yeah moved down here, and it's nice, basically just being in between Walker and Sydney, and just that nice halfway ground. Pardon me. To be able to get down to Sydney and check out what's there, and it's like $6 on a train to go down, because it's still on the city line as well. So depending
Is
on
that
what you
right?
need to
There you
do, it's
go.
pretty,
Yeah.
yeah, it's really chill. Yeah, yeah. So Newcastle's the home at the moment.
Yeah. It's not as mad as Sydney either. The nutcases that are in Sydney and how difficult living in Sydney is. You're a little bit out of the madness.
Yeah, absolutely. Without being completely removed, if I, it's possible for me to play a show, and crash at a mate's place and or just drive back. It's only 2 hours or something. So it just, yeah, it takes a lot of strain off both financially and mentally, and just daily life is so much easier than.
Does it
Yeah,
feel
it's a good
like
spot.
does it feel like at this point in time? It's been years since I've been. I used to live in Sydney, but it was about 16 years
Oh
ago
yeah.
or so. Does it feel like at these days Newcastle is like a far northern suburb of Sydney, or is there still that separation?
I guess people people kind of talk about, because I'm living in Newcastle East at the moment, and so people are like, "Oh, you're right in the city of Newcastle," and I'm like, "No, like it's not a city. Like it just really feels like a big country town, to be honest. Like it has
Yeah,
not, it's hardly got a city feel about it." And
compared to Sydney at
yeah,
least, anyway. Yeah, I know
oh,
what you're saying. Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, it's and but it's great. I like it for that.
Yes, Newcastle is a town I've spent zero time in, but I've spoken to a few
Ah,
artists from there, and I
yeah,
often
okay.
wonder when I drive down, which could, like, God, when's the last time I drove down? Almost 10 years ago. But I
Yeah,
remember the
wow.
drive down. You hit Newcastle first, and then there's like that, like the highway changes color. It's like that concrete color, and you know what I mean. Like it's like, are we in Sydney yet? But
Yep.
no, you're not in Sydney yet.
Yeah.
But you sort of feel like you're there, but you're not.
It.
But you
Yeah,
know
I
you're
do
on the
know what you
last
mean.
stretch.
Absolutely.
Especially if you drive down by the New England Highway and you go down through Warwick and what's that town up there bloody called where Peter Allen's from? Jesus, I can't
Oh,
remember it. Sorry,
Tenterfield.
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 Bang, on
Yeah.
point. You're on point, brother. You drive down through
I try.
there, yeah, and you sort of you hit Newcastle because it's all nothing until that point. Oh, you do drive past the coalfields and the Scone and where the electricity's generated and the like, and you sort of think,
Yeah,
oh, okay, I'm getting
absolutely.
close now, and but then you hit Newcastle and you feel like you're in Sydney a little bit, But it's nice to hear you say that it's kind of got this rural and regional feel to it because I've got to say the last time I was down there, which again was 10 years ago, it felt a bit like Sydney to be honest with you.
Yeah, true.
Where
Okay,
was I? It was
fair.
in a Stockland Mall somewhere. Was it Stockland Mall? I can't talk shit. I mean,
Mm.
not expecting you to, know my intimate details from 10 years ago, of course, but I remembered being down there and thinking, holy shit, this shopping mall is as busy. I had to pick up some stuff before we went down to Sydney to meet some of my wife's family.
Oh,
Um,
true. Yeah,
and
okay.
yeah, I remembered thinking back then, oh wow, Newcastle has come a long way since the Johns brothers dominated in the NRL.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there's a lot of development and things, but it just, I don't know. I think maybe because I'm living with um, my housemate Michelle, she's an absolute champion, but she her folks owned the Lass Hotel for a long, long time, and only
Mm,
just sold up last year. And through her, she just has this huge. She just knows everyone, and I guess maybe that makes it feel a little bit smaller. And
sure.
but yeah, I've been really lucky to not feel like it's another huge place, but it's great. I
Mm.
recommend when you can get down, get down.
There was always a pub there. I can't. The Cambridge. There you go. Came to me in an instant. There
Yeah,
you go.
Cambridge. Yep.
Is that still going?
Yeah, so
Kind of.
they're kind of, well, I mean, they've started gigs again, but it's sit down, so like, I guess it's a ticketed kind of event as well. So sitting down tables and stuff with, a much limited capacity. So they sell out pretty quick. So I actually haven't been to any of the gigs that they've had, but yeah, I'm glad that they've been able to get something going again.
Mm.
Yep, still tracking on.
All right. So, final question for you.
Sure.
With a release like this, it's a strong release, but, and I've had this conversation two times prior to you, actually tonight,
Mm. Yeah,
with
okay.
COVID going on and not being able to play live
Mm.
in the traditional sense. You know what I'm saying? Like beer in hand,
Yeah.
up front, feeling
Yeah.
the aura of the person that you're playing for, if you know what I'm
Mm.
saying, which is impossible
Mm.
over electronic means.
Yeah.
How do you plan on promoting such an extraordinary release as this?
Well, I mean, that's probably the first time I've heard it worded like that. Extraordinary release. But thank you, firstly. And I guess, yeah, it's. I've been watching a few different artists in the way that they're going about things, and live streaming is one thing, and it's yeah. I don't know where I'm at with the live stream. I think I'd rather.
Yeah, it doesn't work, to be honest, mate. I'm sorry,
Yeah,
but
I
I've watched a
just
few of them. I've watched a dozen of them at this point. Sorry to interrupt
mm,
you, but I've watched a
no,
dozen of
no.
them at this point, and they honestly, it looks like you're watching a YouTube video from yesteryear. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like, it's not the same
yeah.
vibe.
It's no, and I guess like if you're actually watching it live, maybe, but I'd rather spend the time actually doing a performance with some kind of video format, but something that I could make sure was nice for people to watch whenever they wanted, rather than you
Can I
need to
suggest
watch this
something?
now.
And sorry,
Yeah,
I'm
please.
interrupting again, but I just
No, go for it, Andrew.
these thought
You got the
bubbles
reins.
happen. Well, these thought bubbles happen, and I know, I just don't want it to sort of disappear. But with an artist like you, look, I do tarot card readings too. This is the other thing, and one of the things that I feel about an artist like yourself is your connection will be with people one on one. So I think if you
Mm,
advertise, and I'm not suggesting that you ask for people to pay or otherwise, do what you feel is right. But I think if
mm,
you do the Facebook Live thing, but via Messenger, and connect with people on a one-on-one
mm.
basis and do that for them, I think you will like. And it sounds like hard work, but I don't think it will be for somebody like you, because I think your music is already very personal, and I think if somebody like connects with your music, they will actually go, you know what, like if you do a Patreon thing or what have you, or even you just want to give it away, as I say, whatever you feel
Yeah,
is
yeah,
comfortable, just do it one on one, because I've watched a dozen of these live things, and they're literally live, but
yeah,
you're like, what the fuck am I watching? Like,
yeah,
it
yeah. I know,
honestly
right?
feels like you don't, you like, there's not that, like, I know they're doing it to make a personal connection, but
Mm,
it actually feels quite the opposite. It feels like a
yeah.
cynical attempt to connect with an audience because that you can't play live, and
I reckon it'd just be a weird feeling too. It'd be,
it's, brother, it is strange.
for the
I've watched a few
performer.
of
You
them.
know what I mean?
Oh
Like,
yeah, I do.
yeah,
I'm a musician too, and I get it. I'm
yeah,
thinking you're literally performing into a camera lens, and
yeah,
more often than not, probably an iPhone lens or an Android phone lens as well,
yeah,
because they're just as good as what the camera lenses are these days. I've just
yeah,
graduated from uni, and that's what we're using these days. We're not using big studio. My HP 100 Panasonic is useless compared to my iPhone 11X or whatever it's called. The
yeah,
point being is that it's an artificial experience, and I don't think people are after that. But I think the way you circumvent that is by leveraging social media's power to connect with the individual. And I
yeah,
think for someone like you, Keelan, is that your music is very engaging, and it is a gut level thing, meaning that you connect with people on an individual basis. So you offering your services, when I say services, you know what I'm saying, your
mm,
performance on an
yeah, I
individual
do.
basis, man, I think people would sign up for that. I could be wrong, man. I could be completely fucking wrong, but I actually think I might be right.
You know what? I reckon you maybe you've just cracked the whole. This could be a huge thing for a lot of musicians if they listen to this, because I don't know if I've heard of anyone actually thinking about that.
Nobody's doing
You
it.
know?
And I tell you something, the other thing too is there's nominator payment. So just say to them, you
Ah,
pay what you feel it's worth up front, not afterwards, because people will be guilted into it. You say if you want to pay
yeah,
$5, fair enough. If you want to pay
yeah.
$50, fair enough too. But I think you're skilled enough, mate, that people will watch. Like what I'm saying is, like, prepare it. Like do the videos in
Oh,
advance. Like do some videos in advance to give people an idea what they're in for. But
mm,
then when they connect to you via Messenger, and they can see the Facebook Live, not Facebook Live video. I don't know what the live video on Messenger is called, but you know what I'm saying.
yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
private feed via Facebook or via Instagram or whatever the social media platform might be. Man, I think you do really well with that, and I think this is the thing about this era. Like the
Mm,
Spotify CEO I think he's an asshole, but not because he's an asshole, if that makes sense. Like, I can't stand what Spotify and Apple Music has done to music, but it's inevitable that
Yeah.
somebody was going to come along and change the paradigm in which kids listen
Yeah.
to music. But
Yep.
he said that these days it's all about forget about albums, forget it. I'm paraphrasing, okay, so I'm not quoting directly, but my recollections of his comments are that he said if you cannot connect effectively with people online and via social media, and you're a musician, forget about it. In other words,
Yeah.
figure it out.
Mm.
And I
Yeah.
think
Right.
for an artist like you know, you're not starting out as a musician, of course, but as a recording artist and getting your music out
Mm.
there. This is a way to do it. And honestly, this has literally occurred to me as I'm talking to you. And
This is bloody impressive. What a time.
yeah, well,
Like, how lucky am I? That's awesome.
but that's the thing. Like I'm saying to you, man, I actually think that you have a serious chance at doing that. And you know, I mean, do it at night via. You know what I'm saying? Like make it an event. Like
Mm.
set everything up with a roadie mic via a campfire somewhere. You know, just
Yeah.
out of town or what have you, and do 2 or 3 and do it in half-an-hour blocks. You know what I mean? And let the
Yeah.
people nominate which songs they want to hear.
Man, I'm glad this is being recorded because this is a great point of reference. So I'm like, I was like scribbling notes. I'm like, hang on, I can potentially listen to this later. That's good. Yes,
I'll
keep
send it
going,
to
Andrew.
you.
Great.
Sorry, I'll send it to you. But this is what happens to me, man. I've done at this point in time. It's fair to say I've done over 600 interviews, and I get these
Yeah, wow.
thoughts of they're bolts of lightning that appear as thoughts, but oftentimes they can be thought bubbles, and then they just pop and disappear. But I didn't mean to interrupt you, as I say earlier. But when I hear somebody's music which is as genuine and sincere as what yours is, I know it's going to affect people. And look, I was just out
Oh,
at
thank you.
Toowoomba the other day, like, and I was listening. I'm thinking. I often think, and I've said this plenty of times on my podcast, like, where does music have a role in my life? To the
Mm.
artist level. And when I think of your music, I mean the fact that you're from Walker and I'm up here, like we were out at Toowoomba and we were like 15 or 20 kilometres outside of Toowoomba, so we were bushwhacking, as we say.
Yeah,
And
yep.
we're at a homestead, you know, just not in
Yeah,
the middle of
beautiful.
nowhere, but like, you know, I mean, we were out there, we could see the stars and shit, and the kids were having
Mm.
fun and stuff. And man, your music would have been perfect for by the campfire and the Jack Daniels and I cooked the
Yeah,
barbecue, and man, it was all going on. And I think that's you, man. That's you right there. And there's plenty of us city slickers that love that shit.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, no, I do love me a good old campfire, that's for sure.
You have been listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast series that syndicates for the A-List Online. My name is Andrew Mackay-Smith. That artist thing you just heard from is Keelan Butterick. He is Silent Eyes. Do check out his material. You can find him easily on social media. Just type in Silent Eyes. Thanks for listening.